What's up my friends, how's it going, and welcome back to the 7th episode of our Let's Play series as Alexander with your fellow comrade Summary. In the previous episode we conquered the remainder of Judea as well as we moved ourselves into Aegyptos, conquering the entire province as well as Libya. We are setting up Aegyptos to be our secondary economic province. Meanwhile, Libya is going to be a food province. Speaking of food, we are slightly in a food shortage of -6, and that is because Libya actually has a banditry event. I wonder if I turn off my taxation, if that would help. Not entirely sure. I don't think Libya has a banditry event. We can just quickly check that out. We're going to send an emissary because that gives food. And yeah, as you can see, we are making quite a bit of money, food from Libya, but not as much. And we really have to upgrade our food production as much as we possibly can. And one of the main ways we are going to achieve that is if we can upgrade our farms into the irrigation ditches. Of course, the farm is going to give us +4 food, but the irrigation ditches is going to double that, which means we can almost double our entire food generation in all of the provinces in which we are generating food, of course. We have quite a bit of money in our treasury, 22,000 drachma in the treasury, as well as we're making 14,900, almost 15,000 drachma per turn, so that is kind of good. Meanwhile, the main focus of this episode is of course going to be the Battle of Gaugamela. We are going to take over Babylon, the capital of the Achaemenid Empire, and then we are going to try to expand as much as we possibly can into the Persian heartlands. All the way up in the north we have a couple of armies over there that are ready to launch a simultaneous invasion of the province of Media. Our main objective of course is to try to bring the Achaemenid to its knees in this episode. They do have a bit of armies, as you can see over here. They have about 6 total armies. We're going to get rid of 2 of them, and then they'll just be left with the 5 up in the north. Of course, some of these are satraps, as well as they have another satrap army over here that could potentially attack Tushpa. We'll have to see how that goes. Apart from that, we do have Alexander himself, who's moved all the way from Aegyptos close to Babylon. He is supported by Hephaestion as well as Cassander. Now we could easily just, isolate this settlement and then attack this army outside, or we can just go ahead attack this army outside, and what that will do is that it'll bring out the garrison as well as of course the massive army that's inside the settlement of Babylonia, and that will actually be a really good battle to watch. So we will take a look at that soon, but before we go ahead and do that, we're going to take a quick look at our buildings in each of the provinces. What we are going to try to do is prioritize our food building, and more importantly we are also trying to convert ourselves into an empire, and I think we already have managed to do so in the turns between the episodes, of course, but I think we still might have some just a couple of turns left for that reform to complete. As you can see, it's a -6 in that government reform, and it decays by -3 per turn or +3 per turn, and what that means is in about 2 turns that will be completed. So that is pretty good. Apart from that, of course, food is not looking great, so we'll definitely have to improve on our food. Aegyptos, meanwhile, we're not really taxing the province, but if we do, we will make quite a bit more income. But of course, we do not have the kind of food in our empire to support that. However, before we go ahead and do anything, let's just quickly go ahead and we got some dignitaries also in the region. Okay, that's great. Just a quick look at our map. Okay, see where our agents are. It's been a while since I have played this campaign, so I'm just trying to get my bearings a little bit over here. Bear with me with that. The reason being is because, as most of you know, I have been focusing a lot on modding, as we are expecting the summer 1.3.5 beta to release as quickly as possible for this summer, of course, where you guys can test it, and then hopefully it'll be released by year end. And to be honest, I've also been slightly distracted with a release of a new game from Paradox, and I actually like Paradox Interactive a lot, especially the Europa Universalis 4 title, and of course they are coming out with a Europa Universalis 5. But enough of Paradox, let us just jump into the campaign. I think the very first thing we need to do is just go ahead and declare this battle. What we are going to do is we're going to march Hephaestion. We have a choice between Hephaestion or Cassander, but the real problem over here is, of course, this Parthian army. So what we are going to do, rather not Parthian, I kind of got confused with the flag, but the Arachosians. And speaking of the Arachosians, let's just take a look at our overall situation. As you can see, we have pretty much formed the entire borders of the Eastern Roman Empire, kind of like a border, with a little bit of extra going on over here in Mesopotamia. But more importantly, we have gotten rid of many of the Achaemenid satraps. We've gotten rid of the Lydians. We've gotten rid of the Phrygians, I believe. And of course, we have also subjugated Armenia. So that's 3. And finally, we have even taken over the satrap of Aegyptos. So the Achaemenids start off with about 6 satraps, and we have already dealt with 4 of them. What this basically means is that they have lost the potential to field 4 armies each, which means 24 armies in total. 4 times 4, I'm sorry, 16 armies in total. So that basically kind of significantly weakens them. Of course, we're going to keep pushing into Persia, as mentioned. I believe they have the remainder of Mesopotamia, Media, probably the entirety of Parthia and Persis, after which the 2 remaining satraps of Bactriana and Arachosia will be, isolated, and they will be picked apart, as was historically the case with Alexander. Of course, speaking of Alexander himself, he is 26. Of course, when he fought the Battle of Gaugamela, he was 25. So we're a little bit ahead of schedule. However, not too far, a little bit behind in schedule. However, not too far behind. Meanwhile, we do have a champion over here. Not entirely sure what he was meant to do. I think he was meant to assist Hephaestion. So that's what we're going to do. What we are going to do with this Arachosian army is we are going to try to block his avenues over here, and we can just about do that. Go ahead, move Cassander over there. So yes, that's a good choke point, as you can see with the zone of control. That army has nowhere to go in this direction, so we've effectively protected Tushpa as well as Hatra, and the only other option for that army is to move back towards Ganzak, or go ahead and attack us over here. So we are going to deploy ourselves in a fortified stance, and so we do have an advantageous situation. All the way in the west, we have Stratos 8 Philotas. It might not look like the usual composition, but all the way further west near Nicomedia, we have Stratos 6 Python, and he has the remainder of the troops. So what we're going to do is a little bit of mixing and matching between these 2 armies to give them the units that they need. All the way up in the north at Media, we have Stratos 4 under Parmenion, as well as Stratos 3 Pericus. They will be beginning the invasion of Media. Of course, we have a dignitary there preemptively to help with the cultural conversion of the province. Speaking of culture, in all of our provinces, Judea is now Hellenic, as is Coile Syria. We even have Kilikia Syria as Hellenic, just about Hellenic, of course. It's going to be really difficult, and in fact we are losing Hellenic culture over here since we don't really have any temples to help with that cultural conversion. But I'm not too concerned. As soon as this province kind of levels up, we are going to get a temple as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, Paphlagonica Pontus is Hellenic. Of course, Phrygia Cappadocia is also Hellenic. Ionia, of course, started out as Hellenic and is now dominantly Hellenic, and of course our home territory is way Hellenic. Apart from that, Libya is also Hellenized. However, Aegyptos is going to take a while before it is Hellenized. We don't really need a lot of temples over here to Hellenize the province, and that is because we actually have governor generals and admiral governors. They really help with the cultural conversion of the province. So in that regards, things are looking good. However, with that, let's just go ahead and initiate this battle over here. We're going to move Hephaestion as close as possible to this army over here, and we're going to move Alexander in and attack that army. This should trigger the Persians into attacking us. I could turn off the control large armies, but I'm not going to do that, as was mentioned in some of my previous videos. So I'm going to quick save over here, hop into the battle, and I will see you all in the battle. And welcome to the Battle of Gaugamela. Although the terrain is a little bit weird, quite a lot of forestation, and of course there is a bit of a terrain advantage for the Achaemenids. They are atop a hill. Meanwhile, Alexander is waiting for his reinforcements coming in from Hephaestion himself. We have arranged our armies in preparation, in waiting for, of course, our reinforcements. Let's quickly hide the foliage because there's just simply too much of it right now. And of course, as you can see, Alexander is just waiting for his reinforcements. They are slowly trickling down into the battlefield. Hephaestion, along with his Phalangite, we are going to line up our formation in our typical, oblique order, and then we are going to march uphill and take the fight to the Achaemenids. However, with that, I am going to fast forward into the future, so you guys don't need to watch the entirety of the battle, especially the movement and setup phase of the battle. Alright, we have gone ahead and set up our army. As you can see, it took 7 minutes to just basically get all of our units in formation, a massive front line. We're just going to quick pause over here, take a look at our entire formation. Of course, we have Alexander himself leading his companion cavalry. He is going to be on the prestigious right flank alongside his cavalry of companion cavalry, especially those unique units by Eumenes Kratoros. Meanwhile, on the left flank, mimicking Alexander's right flank, is Hephaestion himself, his closest confidant, leading, of course, his companion cavalry contingent, and he is supported by other Thessalian cavalry alongside, I believe I have given him one of the unique cavalries to give him that fear ability. Not entirely sure if it's here, but if in case it's not there in this battle, then I have done that in the future battles. On the immediate left flank, right next to the central core of our army, we have a couple of units of Agrianian sellswords, and of course we also have, so we can just unpause it over here because it's going to take a while for these guys to march up, so might as well. We have Agrianian peltastae supporting them. Meanwhile, on our front lines, we have our Agiraspides as well as our Hyperphistae. They are basically hoplite units. They're protecting the flanks of the core center, which is basically our Phalangite units, our Calcaspides, and of course, on the other flank, we pretty much mimic the hoplite protection on the far flanks, as you can see over there. We have another unit of our Giraspides as well. Meanwhile, in the back, we have our missile units. They are mostly consisting of our mercenary Cretan archers, as well as, of course, our mercenary Rhodian slingers slowly marching up in towards the battle. And of course, on the immediate right flank, which is more or less a mirror of the immediate left flank, we have Agrianian axemen once again, supported, or Agrianian sellswords, supported by the Agrianian peltastae. These guys are very good skirmisher units with a decent melee capability. Up atop the hill, we have a line of sight of the Achaemenid forces. They have a lot of missile cavalry, which is going to be problematic for us to deal with, especially trying to chase them uphill. Apart from that, they have quite a lot of Sparabara units. They even have some mercenary Greek hoplite kind of a unit, as well as some apple bearer units. So not a very inferior army, pretty respectable. But however, of course, our Macedonian army is going to be much, much better equipped to handle anything the Persians can possibly throw at us. However, that being said, you can see that I'm slowly moving my troops up ahead. You can see that I'm not being too aggressive. I am actually forming up as far behind, and I'm taking it step by step, slowly approaching the enemy. And you want to do this when you have a huge army, because as you can see, there's already a huge chaotic disorganization going on over here, despite the small distance. So you want to cover that distance, have your army reform before you can march out new orders, because if you kind of march all the way up to the enemy and the AI is triggered to initiate the assault, what's going to happen is you're going to find a lot of your units out of position, and you could be caught in a very, very bad situation. So pretty much going to forward once again until we approach the enemy and trigger the AI into initiating the battle. Alright, so we have triggered the enemy AI. We're pretty much very close to them. We have kind of formed up our troops, and you can see that I'm slowly trying to readjust my troops, forming up that oblique order very quickly. I'm doing it 2 units per increment, or per forgot the exact term. But basically that is what I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to create a nice big oblique order. We have a majority of the Persian forces to our left flank, which means of course the ones that are on our far left flank are going to take quite a while to reach to us, and that is exactly what we want. Considering that of course my formation is forming up in that oblique order, I am withdrawing my Agrarian supports on the flank to kind of stay well out of reach within the enemy. The last thing you want is for your Agrarians to engage on a head-on engagement, because while they are really good at melee, as you can see, they're very lightly armored, so you really do not want them to engage head-on. Apart from that, you can see on the right flank, I will slowly try to advance my other Agrarians so that they are in a decent position to quickly support my right flank. What I am also doing over here is moving up my entire oblique order. Right now, it's very random, not as clean as it would be if the battle was a bit smaller. And over here straight up you can see some enemy movement, which is why I trigger my phalanx formation just in case they decide to charge against my phalanx, but they will get a very good side charge over here. Fortunately for us, some of our phalangite units are going to be holding them, and we even have accretion archers unleashing onto them. So yes, once again things are looking great. Unfortunately, a lot of missile units against our phalangite units, so we are going to be taking quite a bit of casualties. Noticing this cavalry over here well overextended, we charge in with Alexander. We managed to catch them, of course, and we managed to quickly rout them out of the field of battle. Of course, Alexander there himself riding into the battle. After having dispatched the enemy, we are going to pull back as quickly as possible, try to reform our formations. We're slowly moving our phalangite core front line up ahead, and that is because of course we have we cannot stay defensive and under fire. Unfortunately over here the enemy gets a pretty good charge, but our phalanx formation manages to hold the line. We managed to stop the enemy in the tracks. We lower our pikes, which is going to cause a lot of casualties for this cavalry unit, and they are going to retreat very quickly. Over here you can start to see some disorganization of my phalangite units, so I'm trying to fill in that gap that kind of formed up. It's a little bit harder to micromanage a massive army, but of course you can do it quite effectively, as there you have it. You can see another charge downhill, so they're going to have a charge bonus against us downhill, but of course they are up against pikemen supported by archers, so they are going to be absolutely annihilated over here. They're going to lose decisively very quickly, rout from the field of battle. There you have it. You can see most of the cavalry is being taken care of. However, you can see that we are still under a constant hail of missiles that will start to deplete some of our units if we do not engage as quickly as possible. However, on the far right flank, you can see Alexander is trying to bait and switch the missile cavalry off the Achaemenids. They are the main problem, but we get them close enough to our Agrarian Peltaste, and they are going to make some quick work out of these units. Unfortunately, the Agrarian Peltaste are very weak to a cavalry charge, even if it is a missile cavalry, so I kind of feign a charge against them and pull back just so to kind of help my missile units dodge the cavalry charge, but they quickly regain their morale. However, of course, they are still under missile attack. Noticing that, of course, we have a unit of melee over here. It's a pretty light unit. We could potentially charge with our cavalry. They're not going to be able to do much against us. But I decide to use my Agrarian axemen to charge into the fray. Armor-wise, they are more or less equal. However, they have a much greater advantage due to their greater weapon damage and armor-piercing abilities. Meanwhile, over here in the center, you can see we are continuing our slow march upwards. We're trying to get closer, ever so closer to the enemy. Some of our units, especially our Calcaspires units, have taken quite a bit of damage from that missile fire, and we do not want to be passive even further because that is just going to cause even more damage, and our front lines could be significantly weakened from this confrontation. So the main objective over here is to slowly keep moving up our pikemen. Over here you have a cavalry unit, a missile cavalry unit, not really going to engage with my pikemen, but the main objective over here is to force the enemy to commit to the melee, therefore limiting our missile casualties taken from the missile damage, of course. One of the things I did notice in this battle is that, of course, my front part of the echelon formation is already in an advanced position, which means that a lot of my units cannot really get engaged in the battle. They're taking some casualties from missile fire, which is actually bad, and sooner or later I try to rectify it by slowly curling my left flank. You can see that I've already started preparing that up, trying to make my left flank a bit more aggressive, so that of course they entice the enemy to engage in a melee. However, on that right flank you can see that my Agrarian's quite overwhelmed. We have one Agrarian unit surrounded by a multitude of enemy units, vastly outnumbered, but they are being supported by Agrarian Peltaste, who are hurling javelins into the flanks, of course, and once they're done with those javelins they're going to charge into the fray. But before they can even do that, we are charging in with a lot of our cavalry, trying to inflict as much morale penalty as we possibly can. Keep in mind, our unique cavalry does have that scarability, which makes our charges even more devastating, and as soon as we realize we haven't managed to break the enemy from the initial charge, we pull out of the engagement and send in our Agrarian Peltaste that have depleted all of the ammunition to charge into the fray. So now the battle is looking more or less even on that flank. However, on the opposite flank you can see that we are still trying to get into a more advanced position over here. Some of our Phalangitae taking quite a bit of casualties, but the others are holding quite firm in that melee, which gives us a very nice and juicy opportunity to attack. Realizing the situation over here isn't going to rectify that easily, I have decided to charge into this area right here, and that's what I'm doing with my cavalry on the right flank. You can see that the more advanced right flank of my formation is having a much more intense engagement from Alexander and his cavalry. Meanwhile, on the left flank, which is more or less very passive, you have Hephaestion along with his Thessalian cavalry just be a little bit more passive. However, over here you can see that Alexander and his cavalry is basically trying to make quick work of any of the remnants of the enemy. We're going to try to charge in once more against this cavalry, against this infantry unit. And one of the major problems of charging into the rear of such units is that all of the retreating units are going to block your pathfinding, so you're not going to get as clean a charge, of course. And keep in mind, these are spear units, which means we are going to be in a big problem if we stay engaged in that fight. However, thankfully we have another unit of Agrarian Axemen who haven't taken any casualties. They have charged the flanks over here. They are going to cause some serious casualties and waver these units real quick. As you can see them hacking at the Persians. Nothing much the Persians can do against these Agrarian Axemen, and they're already wavering. Meanwhile, on the remainder of the battlefield, you can see that there is a wide opening in my front line that the enemy can exploit. However, they're not really exploiting it. The main reason is these Phalangitae units that were in the center of our echelon formation took quite a bit of missile fire, and I wanted to pull them back to relative safety. And both of them are actually unique Phalangitae with Polyperchon as well as Koinos. So I do not want to have them wiped out from the field of battle, because if I have to replenish them or re-recruit them, it'll have to be all the way from Anatolia or even Thracia or even Macedonia, and I do not have the patience to march them all the way across to Alexander. So the safer bet is to actually commit my furthest portion of that left flank, which was held by our Giraspires as well as our Hypophistes, to close that gap over there, and that is exactly what I'm doing, and in just about time, because you can see some of the Persian phalanx units are trying to slowly get involved in the battle. However, on that right flank, you can see that we have managed to completely crush that enemy right flank. We have some of the units that are returning into the field of battle, but we're wasting no time. We're using our Giraspires as flanking units. Meanwhile, we're using our Agrarians to flank a little bit deeper due to that increased movement, and our cavalry is going to flank even deeper, being supported by our cavalry on the left flank. Hephaestion finally getting some action in this battle. As you can see now, the entire front line has been engaged. Of course, on the far left flank we have our Agrarian support, and they are making quick work of the enemy units in this direction. What we are going to try to do in this battle is to make sure that we kill as many of the enemy as we possibly can, because of course after this battle we wanted to have an easy time conquering Babylon. So you can see pretty massive going on over here. Not really that very clear. It's a bit dark, but you can still see the carnage over there. And slowly but surely you can see the Achaemenid lines being surrounded completely. And they are going to break. There we have it. We've broken their morale, and a lot of them are going to break, and I'm going to chase each and every single one down to a man. You can see we have about 2 minutes left to the battle. I continue the battle. I try to kill as many units as I possibly can, micromanaging all of my cavalry to split up apart, as you can see, and chase down individual units, trying to wipe them out from the field of battle so that the subsequent conquest of Babylonia will be a lot easier. That being said and done, we have won the decisive battle of Gaugamela, and Babylon is ours for the taking. Alright, and there you have it, a decisive victory at Gaugamela. As you can see, we managed to actually kill quite a lot of the Persians, not all of them. They have about 1,300 left. We did have the numerical superiority, which was not the case in the historical Gaugamela, but of course this is the best that we can possibly do. What we are going to do is we are going to enslave up all the captives, of course, and then after that we are going to go ahead and try to attack the settlement over here at Babylonia with Hephaestion, of course, and we can just simply auto-resolve this one because it's quite a favorable auto-resolve. And there we have it. We are just going to peacefully occupy Babylon. Hopefully we replenish just a little bit in this turn, and let's just go ahead and dismantle the buildings we do not require. And one of the interesting things about owning Babylon is that we actually get access to, I believe, a very special type of a unit. Not entirely sure which one is it. Is it at Hatra? There is an AOR unit that Alexander gets, and I'm gonna kind of figure that out as we go along. Maybe it would be a Charax, not entirely sure, but let's just have a quick look to see how that pans out, but pretty sure there should be an AR unit. However, with that, we are more or less done with this turn. Nothing much else left to do in this turn. And of course, we are actually losing food over here. So let's just go ahead and dismantle that building. We're going to dismantle a couple of these buildings as well, so that we can improve our food situation. Food is going to be the major problem, of course. And with that, there's not much else left to do in this turn. What we could do is we could initiate our attack in the next turn into Media, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Meanwhile, of course, we do have a an avenue from Ecbatana from where the Achaemenids could attack Babylon, so we have to be a little bit careful about that while we move south, because historically speaking, Alexander did move south. He took over Charax, and then he took over Persis. And of course, the main settlement of Persepolis over here, somewhere in the fog of war, was kind of razed to the ground. Some speculate that Alexander did it as a revenge of the burning of Athens by the Persians in, the Greco-Persian wars. However, some others, speculate that it was an accidental fire and that Alexander was actually really remorseful at the loss of Persepolis. Keep in mind that Alexander was trained by Aristotle, and Aristotle actually had no love of the Persians. He often called them barbarians of the East. However, Alexander was a very pragmatic, and when he actually took over the former Achaemenid lands and took over their settlements, he was really, really impressed with their achievements, and he kind of rethought his position on them being barbarians, and in fact tried to culturally assimilate with the Persians, which was not really widely accepted by his fellow compatriots, because of course they were educated by philosophers like Aristotle, who are increasingly very, very xenophobic. However, with that, let's just go ahead and end the turn, and I will see you all in the next turn. Alright, welcome to the next turn. Parmenion has been revealed, and of course the Armenians have managed to get a hold of Frafsa. What we're going to try to do is actually move our dignitary over here, and we're going to deploy him in Frafsa, hopefully try to take over the settlements from the Armenians. Meanwhile, we are going to go ahead, attack Ganzak. It's a pretty easy auto-resolve, but what we are going to do is we're just going to move another army close by just to improve or maximize our auto-resolve chances. And there we have it. We have our first takeover of Frasa. We're going to sack the settlement, and we're going to loot it as well. Although peacefully occupying it would have been better for that replenishment purposes, but we haven't taken much losses, to be honest. So I'm pretty happy with that. We do have quite a lot of, enemies over here that could move towards Ganzak, so we have to be a little bit careful of that. What I want to do is actually move my spy down south, get a line of sight of what's going on in Ecbatana. Meanwhile, speaking of Ecbatana, we have Alexander himself that is going to move as quickly as possible towards Charax. He's not completely replenished, but he's going to keep marching forward. Meanwhile, over here, we do have that Aracosian stack still over there. We're going to take a quick look at Babylon. Maybe we have to build this building to get access to those cavalry. Alright, I'm a little bit confused because I'm pretty sure there was a cavalry possible. So, well, I guess it is what it is. Meanwhile, we can go ahead and deploy our dignitary over here near Babylon. The settlement over there, just so that he can help with the cultural conversion. We do have a spy in the region. We're going to move him towards Persepolis. Just get a line of sight of what's going on over there. Meanwhile, of course, even the champion, we can move him towards Hephaestion, start training up Hephaestion. And we still have a food situation. Our economy is looking really, really good, but we are going to go ahead, upgrade as many buildings as we can to help with our food situation. And apart from that, we are also researching the improved irrigation, which will allow us to, level up our agricultural buildings. So we're going to focus on a lot of the research-based buildings because we want to maximize our research rate, as well as, of course, our empire maintenance, which is pretty high at the moment. If you take a look at it, of course, we have 70% empire maintenance, and if we can do our level best to reduce that, that will be ideal. Meanwhile, we have a new party, Illyrian nobility. Interesting. However, let's take a quick look. We can upgrade this character. That's great. -4 empire maintenance. That is actually fantastic. We're going to focus on characters that can be leveled up, that are governor generals, because we really, really want our governor generals to be as maxed as possible. However, we also have this army over here that needs to link up, and what we are going to do is we're going to do a little bit of a bug over here. We're going to go into patrol stance, go into the port, and that should give us just about a lot of movement range to reach side. That is exactly what we want, and we are going to deploy ourselves into the port of side so that in the next turn we have that movement range to move up ahead. Quick look at all of our agents. We have a lot of them, so we're just going to move into Samosata, get the last 3 remaining Halkaspides units. So we can just click that off. We'll get them in the next turn when our population is at a decent level. However, that being said, we are going to take a quick look at all of our provinces, see if we can upgrade anything. Definitely want to upgrade the research-based building over here. We can focus on some other buildings, but I'm not too interested in that. Yeah, over here we want to turn off the taxation real quick and go ahead and dismantle all the buildings. Actually, we repair that one. We're gonna go ahead and we can actually convert that into a research-based building. So I'm actually just going to repair that and then just dismantle that and then convert it into a research-based building all the way over there. I was wondering if we're actually doing it somewhere else, and we're not. So that's perfect. We just have about 1 turn left before we can go ahead and, complete our government reform. And then once we do that, we will be in a very, very, very solid situation over here. However, I think this guy is still in Ganzak, so we'll have to move him a little bit closer towards Frafsa in the next turn and then try to peacefully gain the province from, of course, our Armenian satrap. However, with that, we are done with this turn, so we're going to go ahead, end the turn, and I will see you all in the next turn. Alright, welcome to the next turn. Research has been completed. Food is back on track, so that's great. We have a Strato 7 Ptolemaeus over here. I think he could be moving towards Egyptos, as was historically the case, but what I am going to do is I'm actually going to use him right now for the forward offensive because I will be needing quite a bit of armies over here in the region. Meanwhile, let's just go ahead and upgrade all of our food generation buildings. We are going to begin over here. And then we are going to focus on Phrygia, Kai Cappadocia, as well as Paphlagonia, Kai Pontus. just upgrade that food as much as we can. And with that, we have run out of money. We're going to move our dignitary a little bit closer over here. We don't have enough money to acquire the settlement, but we are just going to stay put over there. We are going to move this army back towards Armavir and just go into a patrol stance, try to replenish in that end turn. Meanwhile, Alexander over here himself is kind of ready to move towards Charax and take over the settlement. As it seems, Gore is undefended, Susa lightly defended, but we're going to move even further east and take a look at Persepolis. Is quite well defended, so meanwhile we can move our champion towards Hephaestion. Hephaestion's going to stay in Babylon until we can kind of keep the province or stabilize the province over there. Meanwhile, quick look at our other characters, especially our dignitaries. We have one over here. That's fantastic. We have another one over here that's trying to acquire that province. This one over here is culturally converting. This one is helping with the administration of Egyptos. And we have another one over here. Not quite sure what he is all about and why is he moving towards Athena. Let's take a quick look. It's to do with food and cultural conversion, I'm guessing. So we might as well actually move him all the way to the east, because it really doesn't make sense for him to be in this area. So let's actually try to move him all the way over here, and we can then move this army all the way up over here into Tarsos, and this army over here can go ahead and recruit. Alright, we don't have enough money to recruit 3 Halkaspides, so we're going to wait off a little bit on that. Meanwhile, we are just going to move this army all the way back over there and then get the Halkaspides units from Tarsos, and eventually even Tapsikos maybe might have quite a bit of population. In fact, Tapsikos does. So we have almost 2 full armies over here that are ready to go. Apart from that, we do have Alexander. He's a little bit depleted, especially his unique units, which is what I do not like to see. However, we are going to go ahead attack Charax. Should be quite an easy, battle, but I'm not going to be showcasing it because, of course, it is a easy garrison battle. We're going to quick save over here, hop into the battle, and I will see you all once the battle is done. And as you can see, a decisive victory. We lost only 50 men. Alexander scoring quite a bit of kills, of course. His cavalry as well as other units trying to slowly level up, of course. And we are going to, sack and loot the settlement, of course, of Charax. And then we're going to deploy in the port so that he can replenish. Hopefully we'll have enough movement. And there we have it. We have enough movement so we can go ahead loot the settlement as well, and with that we have conquered the entirety of Mesopotamia, so we are slowly growing over here. Quick look to see this building. Hopefully this is the building that actually kind of does it. Let's have a quick look. Okay, I have zero idea as to how to get a hold of those units. Ah, there we go. It's actually in Babylon. Okay, interesting. Those are really good units. They're Hippias Agamatos cavalry. Really, really powerful. They are barbarian class, so that's actually really, really good. So what we're going to do is replace a couple of these units. I think we can get about 4 of them. So we'll just have to see exactly how many we can get. Actually, if we can get 4 of them, the idea is to just go ahead and disband these units. Wonder how many we can get. Maybe 4. So let's... I wish the tooltip actually shows you how many you can actually get. And they are really, really powerful. 47 armor is absolutely insane. They're kind of like cataphract type units. So let's just go ahead. We are going to go ahead and disband these 4 units. Go ahead, get the 4 of them. And I think it is 4. You have the maximum number. That's it. 4 units. And then we're going to transfer them over into Alexander's army. We can transfer over a couple of them and give the others to Hephaestion. Alright, perfect. With that, we are going to dismantle this or repair this building, repair that one, dismantle a couple of these buildings, upgrade food. Of course, food is the priority. And we have about enough money to get some Halkaspires units, so let's go ahead and get those Halkaspires units. Perfect. I'm pretty happy with that. Now we could attack this army, but it is in a fort and I'm not really interested in that. Instead, what we're going to try to do is we're going to replenish with this army, then march down south, attack it, kind of try to push it away, and then tag team on it. However, with that, we are more or less done with this turn. Alexander himself is going to replenish, which is great. We can see if a taxation will help over here, and it kind of does. Not entirely sure if we can start taxing Egyptos. Just about capable of taxing Egyptos, but we'll have to wait until some of our buildings have leveled up before we go ahead and do that, of course. And of course, we'll also need our farms to be ready in order to tax Egyptos. However, with that, we are more or less done with this turn, so we are going to go ahead and end the turn, and I will see you all in the next turn. Alright, welcome to the end turn, and the Aracosians are attacking us. We're going to quick save over here, turn off the control large armies because it's mostly a depleted garrison, and we are up against just a single army, so I want to really focus or prioritize on my units that are in the settlement. Going to quick save over here, hop into the battle. We're not going to be showcasing this battle. It will be very easy to defend Ganzak with our phalanx type units, and I will see you all once the battle is done. And there you have another decisive victory. Very easy fight, and we lost only 94 men. We almost killed the entire army. Keep in mind, I'm not trying to completely wipe out the entire enemy army because I want them to be weakened and up in the front. These are Aracosians, which means it's going to block a single army over here. We're going to go ahead and enslave up all the captives, but more importantly, we're taking up one of their recruitment slots, and once this army is wiped out, they'll have to recruit all the way from Aracosia. However, with that, we have reached the next turn, completed several of our missions. We're making a decent amount of money. We have a decent amount of food. We might be able to tax Egyptos soon, and we can, so let's go ahead and do that. Quickly upgrade all of the buildings in Egyptos. Focusing a lot on, of course, we want commerce, so I believe it's the iron hub, which actually improves commerce. So let's actually go ahead and get the iron hub. Meanwhile, we can get the salt merchant, get that as well. So that's perfect. Egyptos is completely in the process of being leveled up. Meanwhile, a quick look at Treke. Treke is also looking good. Meanwhile, over here, we are taxing this province. It is making a decent amount of food. We can, in fact, even promote those buildings. And over here, all the way in the west, we can go ahead and transfer over 3 of these units, a couple of these units, a couple of these units, and just that. So that's perfect. Take a couple of these guys, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's perfect. Now we have 2 new armies, of course, and we are going to move one army over here, and the other army is going to go all the way towards Babylon. We're going to move Ptolemais as well towards Babylon. Just try to get as close as possible to Babylon. Meanwhile, over here, we have taken a bit of casualties. And that could be a little bit of a problem, but we do have an army over here that can move towards Ganzak, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to try our level best to move towards Ganzak. Move over here all the way as close as possible to that army so that we can kind of try to reinforce. And we are going to go ahead and attack over here. This should kind of try to move them. And now that they have moved across, we can in fact move as close as possible to that army once again. And this time we're going to attack, and we're simply going to auto-resolve this one. Should be quite an easy auto-resolve. It should wipe out the army. We are going to go ahead and enslave up all the captives. There we go. Perfect. And we're going to move back towards Hatra. We really need to move towards Hatra. Because I don't think we have a lot of population class in Ganzak just yet. Let's just go ahead and deploy both of these guys in a patrol stance. Meanwhile, Ganzak is good in that is blocking people from moving towards the west, so we kind of secured our region over here. So if you take a quick look at the tactile map, of course, we have Ganzak under control, which is kind of blocking movements in this direction. So this road right here is no longer an option for the Achaemenids and their satraps, so that is amazing. Meanwhile, we are going to move our army back towards Ganzak, deploy him over there into the settlement. We don't have a lot of money over here, but we are going to try our level best to convert that province as best as we can. Meanwhile, over here we do have a 20% chance. We're going to deploy our dignitary in the next turn to acquire that province. We're going to focus on cultural conversion, growth rate, of course. And apart from that, we can even get this over here. Perfect. With that, we are going to take a look at all of our buildings real quick. And things are looking quite good. We can upgrade that building as well. No real need to upgrade that, but we can upgrade this building because it does give research rate, which is kind of nice. And over here, actually, you know what? We can cancel that building because we have to build up at Charax. So let's actually go ahead. This building over here gives +4 from all farms, which is kind of nice because we get a couple more farms. So we're going to build that as well as that. And then we are going to dismantle this building and then culturally convert that building. So things are looking quite good, except of course at Babylon. Let's quickly hide that notification. At Babylon, we really need to relieve the pressure over here. Meanwhile, Alexander is slowly but surely replenishing over here. He is still 26 years of age, so it's looking quite good. Nothing too concerning. But in time, we will need to move forward. However, with that, let's just quickly upgrade this character over here. We do want to get the skill tactician as well. Let's actually get that movement speed. That's great. Parmenion has also leveled up, so we can go ahead, give him all the abilities that he needs. Excellent. And we also have a Governor General who's leveled up, which is great. And we're going to focus on the Empire maintenance, get a couple of these up and running as well. And of course, our public order is also on the rise, which is great. It's exactly what we would like to see. Meanwhile, our dignitary over here, we're going to try to move him towards side and eventually start moving him into, of course, Persis, because we really need to get to Persis, guys, with this dignitary. In fact, you know what? He's not that highly leveled, so I might actually just disband him. He's just level 3, and by the time he actually gets there, it could take a while. So not entirely sure if I want to move him across that slowly. In fact, you know what, guys? I'm just going to let's see if he has at least some good traits. No, he doesn't. So we're going to go ahead, disband him, and in the next turn, we're going to get another dignitary in Charax, and we're going to move him towards Persepolis to help with the cultural conversion, of course, of Persepolis. We're going to move our spy a little bit deeper into the Persian heartlands, get a line of sight. You can see quite a lot of armies over there at Susa, so we'll have to deal with that. However, for now, let's just quickly move a little bit up ahead as well, get a line of sight of what exactly is going on over here in the east. You can see we're starting to push towards the eastward extremities of the Achaemenid Empire. They do have Hecatomb Pylos as well as Sadrukata under their control. They will have Nisa as well, I'm pretty sure, and Suzia, of course, is under their control. So it's pretty much the remainder of Parthia, Persis, that's all that's remaining. So I think we should be able to handle it. Meanwhile, over here, we can turn off or rather retain this edict. We're going to take a quick look at other edicts. We can get rid of that edict and turn on the Sell Slaves edict over here, because this is a food province and we will need to stabilize the public order. However, with that, let's just go ahead, end the turn, and I will see you all in the next turn. Alright, welcome to the next turn. Missing taxes at Hellas. Okay, we're looking quite good. So far so good. Of course, we have an Achaemenid stack that has pushed into, of course, this region over here. Do we want to deal with that? I think perhaps not. Instead, what we want to do is try to move our armies back down south over here in this direction. This army over here is in a decent position to attack, but I do believe we have a Persian army over here, so we have to be a little bit careful as what we do over here. Meanwhile, we are going to move back into Ganzak with the other army, try to replenish over there. Things are looking good. Let's convert that, upgrade that building as well. Over here, we want to change that up. Go ahead. Take a quick look at all of our provinces. It's looking quite good, quite decent, so I'm pretty happy with that for now. We are going to try to stockpile a little bit as far as our treasury is concerned, so that's exactly what we're going for. Meanwhile, we can move all the way down south over here. We really have to kind of protect that settlement. We're going to move all the way into Ganzak once again. Over here, this dignitary can go ahead and deploy. It's 28% chance of gaining Frafsa, which is great. All of our characters have leveled up. We're going to take a quick look at that Governor General, see if we can kind of promote him. It's Lysimachus, sorry. Hide this notification. Where are you? I think you're here, so we can upgrade him as well. Gives a bit more of that commercial wealth, which is great. Meanwhile, they are kind of abandoning Persis, which is a great thing, to be honest, which means in the next couple of turns, I am going to go ahead and attack that settlement. Instead, I think I should actually go ahead and attack right now, at least Gore, and then I can get a hold of Persepolis. Quick look, I'm going to move my spies even further, just get a line of sight of what exactly is going on over here. Perfect. So I really think I should go ahead and attack over here. We can actually recruit a dignitary. Cultural conversion, that's a pretty good guy to get. Meanwhile, Alexander, can he go ahead attack Persepolis directly, or maybe we should attack Susa or Gore? It's really, you know, a question as to what to do. But if I go ahead and attack Susa, then what that means is that this 3 armies, I'm guessing, might try to take back Susa, which will give us an advantage because we will be able to wipe them out, significantly weaken the Achaemenids again. And once we do that, we will be in a very strong position. However, up here in the north, we're going to take a quick look. As you can see, as I predicted, we do have an Achaemenid stack over here. So what I am going to try to do with Perdiccas, of course, is just go into and get into an ambush stance over there. Try to provoke them into attacking me. And over here, not entirely sure if I can actually attack this army. Maybe I can with Hephaestion, but I think the priority is to move Hephaestion as much as he possibly can in the direction of Susa. Quick look to see Babylon. Babylon has really low garrison for some reason. I don't know why. It's just a single unit of garrison, so we have to level up that building. Unfortunately, it's going to consume quite a bit of food and take away from our food generation over here. So we're going to wait a little bit before we can go ahead and do that. 6 turns. We have a couple of turns over here. 6 turns to get that. A couple of turns. So I think we can actually go ahead and upgrade that building for now. And apart from that, we are more or less done with this turn, but I'm just contemplating whether I should go ahead and attack Susa. Perhaps not. Perhaps we just wait another turn, get Hephaestion across, and then we can launch a true pronged attack, move Hephaestion towards Susa. Alexander will move towards Gore himself and then take out Persepolis. And we're going to try to move our armies even further south to kind of control these areas over here, especially Persepolis and Gore are going to be vulnerable to the Arachosians, of course, and in fact even from the north from Hecatomb Pylos. Meanwhile, Susa is a little bit better defended, especially considering we're going to keep pushing in this direction. However, with that, let's just go ahead and end the turn, and I will see you all in the future. When we are ready to push our offensive, of course. Meanwhile, over here, we are just going to put Cassandros in that patrol stance so that he replenishes just a little bit faster than what we are expecting. Alright, welcome to a couple of turns in the future. We've completed a research, which is great. We're going to take a quick look at that, but before we go ahead and do that, the research was basically to give us our final level of cavalry speed, which is extremely important. We're going to take a quick look at all of our buildings, make sure we can upgrade all of the buildings that we want. We are pretty happy with most of the buildings. We don't need to really upgrade any of them as quickly. That is because we are, of course, going to be focusing on, stockpiling some of our treasury. And so now we can take a quick look at our economy as well as, of course, our research. So a quick look over here. -5 empire maintenance, that's very powerful, so we can continue to go down the philosophy tree, try to upgrade that, because that -5 empire maintenance as well as the tax rate is extremely powerful. So let's actually go ahead and do that, and then we are going to try to focus on our construction to boost our economy even further. Quick look to see we have our maximum armies already. Hephaestion has meanwhile managed to move towards Alexander, of course, and we are going to go ahead and attack Susa. This is the right opportunity to strike at it. Not entirely sure where that Achaemenid army is. It's still over there, so that is pretty Okay, we have quite a couple of battles on our hands over here. We will have to wipe out this entire army up here in the north, this 3 over here. We have another army over here that managed to wipe out our Armenian army over here, our satrap, but we do have an army over here that can respond to him. I think the play over here would be to move towards Babylon, try to replenish just a little bit, leave that army over there. It's a little bit useless. We don't really need to engage it. Meanwhile, we can focus on attacking Susa. I think with Ptolemaios should be quite a decent auto-resolve. Over here, we have Alexander and Hephaestion that are going to deal once again with these Persians over here. So what we are going to do is transfer over a couple of these units, take the other 2 units over there. There we have it. Hephaestion's a pretty good position, so we're going to move a little bit closer over there, and we're going to move Alexander in order to attack that army. Perhaps they will stand and fight. So once again, we have a really good fight on our hands, almost even. We're slightly outnumber them. Gonna quick save over here, hop into the battle, and I will see you all in the battle. Alright, welcome to the Battle of Charax. You can see that our army is waiting in the back. We're waiting for our reinforcements to come in. Once again, I believe it is Alexander alongside Hephaestion waiting for his confidant to join the field of battle. Once again, we have really horrible terrain against the Achaemenids. In fact, this terrain, even though it's not that forested, in fact, there are no real foliage over here. It is a worse terrain, if I were to say so myself, and that is actually because of the fact that just excuse me a second, gonna quickly turn off my notifications. Alright, and that is because of the fact that a lot of this is not really favorable for phalanx type formation. A lot of these areas are not traversable by land because of the steep inclines and declines in the topography. Which means we are not going to have a straightforward march to the enemy. And realizing that my only real flat land avenue of attack possible is in this direction, which comes with its own set of drawbacks, because of course you can see this limits the kind of frontage we have against the enemy. That is basically what I do. I choose to bite the bullet, move up all my army in this direction, and actually shift all of my cavalry in this pass over here that can be used to then encircle from one direction. And usually this is a little bit of a disadvantage, because obviously having 2 possible flanking routes is much better, because you have an even greater chance of finding success on one of the flanks and then performing your famous hammer and anvil tactics against the Persians. The Persian army might seem small, but they're actually quite big. A lot of them are hidden because we do not have line of sight of them just as yet. But as you can see, it's a huge battle, almost spanning half an hour. So I'm not going to be showcasing the entire battle. Of course, a lot of the battle is going to be involved in setting up my unit formation. I'm just going to pretty much forward into the future, where I am in the position I just described moments earlier, where of course I have my front line over here supported by both of our cavalry, Alexander and Hephaestion and his contingent on just simply the right flank. Alright, so there you have it. We are on this side of the battlefield. You can see we have arranged our units in that formation. You can see all the way in the back, Hephaestion has decided to support Alexander on that right flank, since of course we are limited by the bounds of the terrain. We have our Agranians on the left flank protecting, of course. We have our Geraspides as well as our Basilikoi Hypophistae protecting the flanks of our Phalangite units, and we have a similar setup on that immediate right flank with our Geraspides as well as our Agranian support. Behind, of course, our front lines, we have our mercenary Rhodian slingers and Grecian archers, and we are slowly but surely moving uphill, trying to get a little bit closer to the enemy. You can see that this sort of has a slight advantage to us in that, you know, a lot of the enemies can't actually get involved in the fighting, and if they have to funnel down through this choke point, and especially Phalangite units, phalanx type units are really powerful in such a situation. Unfortunately, this sort of advantage also presents a formidable weakness in that I will be kind of overwhelmed on the right flank with my cavalry, especially since they have some spear capability over here. So I have to be really careful with how I approach the situation over here. Ideally, I would like a lot of these units to kind of commit to my phalangite and leave a clear path for my cavalry to go around and hammer and anvil. Keep in mind, my cavalry's hammer tactics will be far more devastating, because once they engage the enemy, they are going to be charging downhill, of course, so they are going to be able to cause some massive casualties and morale penalties in the charge that will follow. So that is basically what we're trying to set up. You can see that some of the units are funneling in as we expect, but they do not funnel deep enough for me to kind of take advantage of the situation. They are kind of waiting to protect this possible avenue of attack for my cavalry. However, over here on the left flank, you can see that the fighting is already engaged. Our left flank is going to be engaged for most of the fighting, and unfortunately we are taking some hits from an uphill missile attack. So I decide it is time to just keep pushing forward. Keep pushing forward with your pikemen, with your phalangite. Try to get the Persians involved in melee. A lot of these units are Sparabara type units, which means they do have missile capability, but they do not act like skirmishers, so they will not retreat from you. And once you're close enough, they will get involved in the melee, and that basically negates the amount of missiles they have. They're not going to be able to use a majority of their missiles. Meanwhile, over here on the left flank, you can see our Agrianians have a very narrow window in which to attack, and they are going to be hurling their javelins trying to get rid of that window. All the way on the right flank, you can see that our cavalry is slowly moving into position, but we're not too happy with the situation over there, because the Achaemenids are still protecting that approach. We are going to keep moving our phalangite eventually a little bit forward. We're moving our missile units as well forward, because of course a lot of these missile units will not have range to attack the units atop a hill, because of course they have the terrain advantage, which means our range is going to be a lot less compared to the enemy missile range. And our phalangite just marching bravely onwards against the hail and volleys of enemy missile fire. So that is basically what we're trying to do. And here you have it. The enemy has decided to flank one of my units, but they are going to be supported promptly by Agrianian axemen. That is why they are there on the flanks, to help out as best as we can against such possible flanking maneuvers. Since such flanking maneuvers can be devastating, but thankfully for us, our shielded side is receiving the brunt of this flanking maneuver, so we will not take that many casualties. However, we have to pay close attention to the missile fire that we are taking. So what we are trying to do is we are slowly trying to keep moving up our entire front line. You can see we're actually ignoring the units that are being pinned down, and we're actually continuing to move up forward to engage the enemy units. And some of the missiles have a knockback effect, which kind of creates a little bit of a gap for this unit. But once again, we are just marching ahead, keep marching ahead, and we are going to even support our right flank of our core front line with the Agrianian support, of course. But for now, as you can see, the majority of the battle is kind of stabilized. That is because, of course, a lot of these units have been engaged. We are going to keep trying to move forward. We've managed to get engaged a little bit more on the left hand side, so we're actually unintentionally forming an echelon kind of a formation over here, because of course our left flank this time engaged the battle first. So we are just simply going to hold the line over here, hope for an opening to present itself on that right flank, and then try to exploit that opening with our cavalry. However, with that, I am going to fast forward a little bit into the future. You can start to see that I'm getting a little bit impatient over here. I definitely want to break this right hand side or this left flank of the Achaemenid forces, so that I can then start supporting my melee infantry. Meanwhile, some of my Chalcas Pires has taken, or Calcas Pires has taken some casualties from that missile fire, but they are holding firm. The downhill charge from the enemy cavalry is not going to do much against, of course, our pikemen. They're going to have excellent reach despite the cavalry being heavily armored cataphract type units. They are going to take quite a lot of casualties in that charge. Meanwhile, we have another vicious downhill charge over here. A lot of enemies charging into the wall of pikes, and you can see slowly but surely I'm starting to like the situation, because the enemy is committing, which means we will be able to get a decisive advantage. Meanwhile, down south over here on the far right flank, you can see that the enemy cavalry has tried to charge into the flanks of these units, but they are going to be promptly harassed by our Agrarian units that are protecting the flanks, basically just waiting over there, depleting their missiles before I am going to commit to a charge. All the way up on the far right flank, you can see our cavalry has managed to make quick work of a melee unit. What we really have to look out for is, of course, these spear units, and these spear units, a little bit annoying, heavier version of the Sparabara unit, basically the Vazraka Sparabara. So they're heavily armored, they're very good against cavalry, especially on the charge, and if they are not directly involved in the melee against cavalry, they do have a lot of missile fire with which they can deal some damage. So you got to be very careful. I'm basically just going to ignore them since, of course, we are going to be trying to attack the softer part of the enemy armies, and there we have it. We're attacking some of the cavalry that's retreating from that initial phalanx engagement. Unfortunately, they are going to be supported by some of their melee troops which are left in reserve. Across the entirety of the front line, you can start to see that the situation has more or less stabilized. We've managed to get a slight advantage over here, managing to rout out some units, and we are going to keep pushing with our Agrarians into the fray, trying, of course, our level best to get a decisive breakthrough over here, which will help us support this unit that is absolutely surrounded on that left flank. However, all the way in the back, you can see that Alexander, as well as some of his cavalry, managing to rout out another cavalry unit. Very, very important over here, and we are charging into the rear of the Sparabara unit, hopefully trying to create some morale penalty as well as some casualties from that knockback. We basically use this cavalry to pin them down, due to which it's taken some losses, but the most important thing is that we managed to deal quite significant amount of damage in return to that unit. And realizing that I wasn't able to break it, quickly redirect Alexander, charge uphill and into the backs of the enemies on our right flank, and at the same time they are going to be charged by our Agrarian support troops. This is going to shatter their morale real quick. What we got to watch out for is, of course, this general unit. It is a shock spear archer unit, and they are very smart the way the AI uses this unit. Even though he probably has quite a bit of ammunition left, they are going to be using them to engage our cavalry, which is really smart in my opinion, because they can do quite a lot of damage against enemy cavalry. So here we are going to charge into them. One of the things is that they do not have a lot of shields, so that means a charge against them can be pretty devastating. Unfortunately, our cavalry is quite tired and charging uphill, so they're not going to be able to do much. Over here, the situation is a little bit dicey. I cannot really do anything about it, so I move my cavalry downhill to perform a massive charge against the enemy rear, breaking that frontline formation and freeing up some of my troops. That is important. The main problem over here is, of course, some of the spearmen are trying to engage our cavalry. They will be able to dish out some serious casualties if we do not respond to the situation. Thankfully, the enemy right flank is in shambles, and we are using our Agrarians to support. Meanwhile, on the left flanks, things are still looking quite stable. You can see our Agrarians starting to charge in, trying to get some flanking maneuvers against these guys. We are going to keep charging uphill, so it's not going to be that easy, but we're still able to deal some amount of casualties to these units, causing them to lose decisively. All the way uphill, you can see our cavalry managed to rout out a significant chunk of the enemy. At this point of the battle, we are not going to be able to hunt down a lot of enemy because the bounds of the battlefield is right there, so I do not even bother. What I am actually going to try to do is minimize my old casualties by breaking the balance of power over here heavily in my favor, and that is exactly what we're doing. We're going to try to break out this cavalry before we decide to charge over here, and when we break that cavalry, we actually shatter the balance of power, causing the entire enemy army to rout. I quickly decide to end the battle because there's no point chasing the enemy. We've had a pretty grueling battle uphill, and you can see how massive terrain can play an advantage to the enemy. It should have been a straightforward, clear-cut victory, even though it is a decisive victory, led by Alexander himself alongside Hephaestion. Unfortunately, the terrain really pressured us into taking quite a bit of casualties, and unfortunately that is just the way it is. You have to try to improvise with every single battle and try to come out on top of that situation. However, that being said and done, we have won this battle near Charax, of course, which means we are in a very good position to begin our invasion against Persis. Alright, and with that we have a decisive victory once again. This time we took a little bit of losses because that terrain was a little bit awkward. You had a mountain, and as well as it was right at the edge of the map, which didn't allow me to use my cavalry to its full effectiveness, which means a lot of my units did take unnecessary damage. However, it is what it is. We have managed to kind of wipe out two very strong Achaemenid armies over here. We're going to go ahead and slave up all the captives, push them a little bit behind. I'm not sure if this unit can actually reinforce the fight for Susa, and they can't, so that's great. We're going to go ahead and attack it. Meanwhile, over here, Alexander and Hephaestion a little bit in a difficult situation. Let's take a quick look at Alexander's. Okay, so that's what he has. He doesn't have... He doesn't have the attack. So, okay, he just has the morale as well as the movement speed, which is kind of like a mistake I have done with Cassandros over here, is that I haven't given him... Oh, no. Actually, Cassandros is fine. It's one of these units that I am pretty sure I gave the wrong ability. I gave the fear ability. Not entirely sure which one though. It might be Ptolemaeus himself. Let's take a look. Yep, it's Ptolemaeus. But that's alright for now. Quick look to see if we have population. We do, which means we can replenish. So that's what we're going to try to aim to do in this turn. Meanwhile, we're going to put Alexander all the way into the port over here. Hopefully he should replenish, and then we're going to move Hephaestion all the way down here so that he can also replenish in this turn, and then hopefully in the next turn he will be able to attack Gore. Alexander meanwhile can push towards Persepolis. Hopefully he replenishes quite a fair bit, but the main problem of course is this army over here, because these armies could potentially attack Charax. Charax doesn't have a great garrison, so we will have to deal with that as best as we can. However, for now, what we want to do is start moving our troops up. I mean, I could just go ahead and attack that army. Not entirely sure if I want to. It's going to be a pretty good fight if I do, in fact. So, yeah, I might actually be inclined to do that. Instead, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to entice them a little bit further. Go ahead over there. Meanwhile, you can... Not sure if you can cross into the river, but if you can, that's going to be a problem. So what I am going to do is just move you up this way, and we're going to move and try to deal with this army, because I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely comfortable leaving this army behind while I am trying to push forward. However, with that, let's take a quick look at all of our armies. Of course, we're going to arrange them. We have Alexander, Cassander, okay, Perdiccas is up there in the north, Parmenion there, Hephaestion down south at Charax, Python protecting Hatra, Ptolemaeus attacking Susa, so we'll definitely have to attack that settlement. So let's actually just go ahead and attack Susa for now. We're going to quick save over here. I'm going to hop into the battle. We're not going to be showcasing this, of course, because it is another garrison fight, and I will see you all once the battle is done. Alright, quite a decisive victory over there. Managed to defeat the settlement of Susa. I'm not quite sure if I have enough movement points, but I'm going to peacefully occupy the settlement so that I can replenish in the end turn, of course. And that is the main thing over here. But what we could do, now that I think of it, is that I can actually just attack these armies over here, push them a little bit away. Meanwhile, over here in Babylon, I can actually move Cassandros towards these two armies, so that's going to be extremely useful. Meanwhile, this could entice this army to move towards Babylon, and that is actually going to be really, really useful for me. However, that being said, let's turn off the taxation in Susa. We want to quickly dismantle all of the buildings we do not require and start to build up that province. However, we have also leveled up as Ptolemaeus, so we are going to be focusing on, I'm guessing, the Stratego Spears. Get that as well. Long time since I've played this, so I've kind of forgotten. But let's take a look at Alexander's army. Okay, and we do have the accomplished skirmishers as well, so let's go ahead and get that. Perfect. With that, we can go ahead and end the turn, but maybe, just maybe, we should actually try to break the deadlock over here. But I don't really want to do that for now, because what I want to do is I want to deal with this army, and then I can pretty much march up through this valley and then pincer them from both sides. Meanwhile, that should give me just about enough time to take over Persepolis and Gore, which is what we kind of want to do. However, with that, let's just go ahead and end this turn, and I will see you all in the next turn when we are ready to push. Meanwhile, we can move our spy up here to the north, just get a line of sight of what's going on at Hecatomb Pylos. Alright, welcome to the end turn. That army that was behind our enemy, or behind our own lines at Mesopotamia, has decided to attack us, which is actually fantastic. What this means is that I can quick save, hop into the battle. I'm not going to be showcasing this battle. Should be fairly straightforward battle. We are fully replenished, and meanwhile they are at half strength, and they are on the offensive this time, which means if we do have some terrain advantage, which obviously we don't, it's grassland. Whenever we have to fight, it's on grassland, but whenever we have to take the fight to them, of course they do have mountains and other natural geographic features that give them a significant advantage. However, we're going to quick save. I'm going to fight this. I'm not going to be showcasing this because we are running out of time for this episode. I will see you all once the battle is done. What this should do is to significantly weaken this army, and we will be able to replenish in the end turn. Alright, that was actually a close victory, and I think we lost a unit of Agrarian Axemen, which is really annoying. That is rather unfortunate, which means this army is slightly behind. Oh, now, did we lose that Agrarian? I'm not entirely sure. Let's take a quick look and see. Hopefully we didn't. Hopefully it just survived, because I can see the signs over here. Oof, 38. So it was just 8 units away from being completely wiped out. But we are going to go ahead and slave the captives. All's well that ends well, I guess. And with that, we are in a very strong position. And of course, even the path towards Ecbatana has cleared up, which is really, really interesting. We'll have to see where exactly that army is going. Perhaps they're trying to attack Frafsa by crossing over here and going towards the east, but we'll have to see how that goes. Meanwhile, we'll have to figure out how we are going to launch our invasion in the next turn. And of course, I'm only having a little bit of this conversation because the end turns are going to end quite significantly faster. And there we have it. We have an ambush. Easy auto-resolve. Let's just auto-resolve this one. I don't really care that much for it. And we are going to go ahead and slave up all the captives, further weakening the Aracosians. That's great. They're having 2 armies over here that are held back, and we should be able to replenish in the end turn. There we go. Welcome to the next turn. Region available for acquisition, that is Frafsa. Meanwhile, over here, it is, we are running out of food, so we got to be a little bit careful over there. Ganzak. This is a little bit problematic, to be honest, and it's all the way even at Frafsa, to be honest, so there's not much I can do about this, with the exception, of course, of taking over Ecbatana. So what we're going to try to do is just stay up till here, and we could be in a very, very dangerous situation over here. It's actually happening everywhere, so it could be that it's summer and not really food. Let's just take a look over here. We do have enough supplies, so it's just a summer attrition, so it's not that bad. Meanwhile, we're going to move our spy a little bit over here. Okay, this army is not moving towards Frafsa, which is kind of good news. Meanwhile, this army can go ahead and deploy into Babylonia. We are just going to keep pushing against this army over here. We're not going to let it stay here behind where it can attack us. We are just going to go ahead and keep pushing over here. This army should move all the way. It's now in the zone of control, I believe, of Susa, so shouldn't be able to do much. Meanwhile, this other army has moved. We are going to go ahead, attack over here to wipe it out. Perfect. With Hephaestion, go ahead and slave up all the captives. We have leveled up, which is great. We can go for the veteran Hoplite. I'm pretty sure the companions is also what we want, and the Macedonian veterans, I believe, is the last one, but let's actually just confirm that with Alexander, of course. Well, he hasn't actually gotten the last one, so we can just simply try to improve something else. So let's actually improve this one. Okay, perfect. And we have a couple of dignitaries over here, spies keeping a line of sight, Aracosia of course all the way over there. Perfect. Persepolis is pretty undefended, which means we can go ahead, attack with Alexander. Should be not a very easy auto resolve, but it is what it is. Meanwhile, we're going to use Hephaestion himself to attack the settlement of Kor, and with that we will have completed our conquest of Persepolis. However, with that quick look to see our other characters, for the most part we are looking quite good. I think what we really need to do is, since we have a couple more slots over here, since we have increased in Imperium level, we are going to be focusing on getting a couple more units. So we have 2 more generals, so we can go ahead, deploy one of them. We have pretty good population over here, pretty good population over there. Meanwhile over here, so we're going to start with getting this guy over here, Balakros I believe, and he can get a couple of the Agrianians. That's perfect. Meanwhile, the other character we want to focus on perhaps getting him in Athenae. Let's just go ahead and get him as well, and get him in Athenae, get a couple of the slingers as well. That's perfect. And we are slowly but surely going to start building up as many of our troops as possible, ferry them across the Ionian or the Aegean Sea over here, get them into the east, and then start pushing them forward. So we're looking pretty good for now. Our economy is really strong. Meanwhile, a character over here is leveled up. Let's go ahead and give him that empire maintenance, as well as of course that taxation rate very quickly over here. Maybe we can even promote him. It's Cordros, so let's take a quick look to see where he is at. He might be over here. Right, I can't really find him. Cordros. Let's just mouse over, get a line of sight of, okay, there we have it, but he can't be upgraded of course, so we're just going to leave it at that. Meanwhile, is this dignitary really helping out over here? Yes, he has. And of course, Egyptos is now Hellenic, which is great. Pretty happy with that. Gonna take a quick look at our diplomacy, see if we can actually establish some trade agreements. Can't really, but we are in the process of sending our fleet even more across the Britannic Isles. We want to get a line of sight of what exactly is going on. There we have it. Discover the Iceni, discover the Belgae, but we are going to try to establish a trade agreement with the Iceni. They don't seem to like us all that much, so I'm not too concerned because we are making quite a bit of money, but we are going to continue to keep discovering as many of these factions up here, trying to establish trade agreements wherever we can and wherever possible. Meanwhile, over here in Susa, let's go ahead and upgrade these buildings. Quick look at all of our buildings. We have quite a bit of money, so that means we can upgrade quite a bit of our buildings, and that's exactly what we're going to try to do. We're going to begin with our temples, as well as, of course, these buildings over here are pretty good. They will take a sizable chunk, however. And there we are. Perfect. Even our food buildings are a priority. Perfect. With that, we have more or less expended all of our treasury. We have about 3 turns before our food situation will be completely under control. And of course, we have 2 new armies that we will have to promptly rename. And with that, we can go ahead and end the turn. But before we do that, a couple of these battles are going to be fought. We are going to move this dignitary towards Gore, deploy him as soon as, of course, we have taken over the settlement. We're going to attack both of these settlements, one with Alexander at Persepolis, the other with Hephaestion at Gore. But we're not going to be showcasing these battles because, of course, they're going to be quite easy battles. And we are running out of time for this episode. So after I go ahead and take out Persis, as you can see, the Achaemenids pretty much left to just half of Media and the entirety of Parthia. Of course, we have, the Kartli that have taken over Sadrakata. But the Bactrians are there close by, and if they are in a war against the Kartli, they are going to take over Sarvakata, which means we can take it from them quite easily. What's more is that this dignitary is going to be able to take over that settlement, which means we have to stop building up something just to give him about enough funds to take that over. Perfect. With that, he is... I don't know if he's deployed in this province. That's a little bit confusing. Let's see. What do we have? We have civil administration, culture. Not entirely sure what this is. Civil corruption. Can I deploy him? Oh no. Okay. Okay, that is rather unfortunate. So I will not be able to get this settlement in this turn, unfortunately, because I kind of deployed him. That's a little bit weird bug with the UI over there, which is rather unfortunate. I think deployed do not have this circle, so I gotta keep that in mind. However, with that, let's just quickly quick save over here. We're gonna attack Gore, and after that we're gonna attack Persepolis. Alright, pretty decisive victory. We just took a little bit of casualties on one hoplite unit because we were more or less attacked on that front. Pretty much the enemy decided to concentrate all of their attention towards that unit. But what this means is that we can go ahead and perhaps sack and loot the settlement, get a little bit of money, and go ahead, sack it. And we can loot it as well. This time we can auto-resolve. Should be an easy auto-resolve. Let's go ahead and loot it. That should give us quite a bit of money. And we are going to go ahead and dismantle all the buildings we do not require. And meanwhile, all that remains is, of course, Alexander has to attack the settlement of Persepolis. This is the cultural... let's just upgrade these over here. We want the companions, as well as, I'm guessing the Heralds of Alexander is something that I have taken, which, no. Alright. What have I taken over here? Right. Okay, not entirely sure. Maybe the Hellenic experience is what I've taken. Yeah, let's just go for that for now. Let's get that. Okay, perfect. And historically, this is the cultural capital of Persia. In fact, that's where it gets its name from, this province, Parsis, and of course Persepolis, which is basically the capital of the Persians. Meanwhile, we could attack this army over here. Is it a significant threat? I don't think so, but I guess it's might as well worth it. Just clean up our borders, of course, and we're going to move back into Susa. Should be able to replenish, I guess, just a little bit, and that is exactly what we're going to try to do. Meanwhile, over here we're moving in with Cassandros, going to put him in that patrol stance so that he replenishes, of course, and after which we are going to leave 2 armies over here to protect this choke point from which the Aracosians could attack, or even the Achaemenids themselves. And then we're going to use Alexander to move up in towards Ecbatana, and then Raga as well. A quick look at Alexander, his age, he's 27, which means we have about 5 years left before he dies, which equates to about 5 times 12, which is about 60 turns left to actually wrap up this campaign before Alexander's eventual death. However, that being said, let's go ahead, attack Persepolis, and we're going to quick save over here. I'm going to hop into the battle, but I'm not going to be showcasing this, of course, and I'll see you all once the battle is done. And there you have it, a very decisive victory. In the case of Persepolis, of course, hardly any units taken any casualties. Very easy. Our Gira Spear is very good at scaling the walls, extremely heavily armored, and of course when they are supported by Agrianian axemen, they are going to be extremely devastating. What we are going to do is we're going to sack the settlement, and then we are going to raise it, as was historically the case. Persepolis was raised, and we are going to quickly build up the province as fast as we can. Things are looking quite good over here. We have managed to completely take a hold of the settlement. Let's go ahead and deploy this dignitary over here. Spy can get a line of sight of what's going on in the east. go ahead and deploy him over there. Perfect. And we soon want to take over Ecbatana as well. And we are going to do that with Alexander himself. We're going to keep marching. We still have a little bit of time left on our hands for this turn. So we are going to go ahead, or for this video, so we are going to go ahead and fast forward a little bit into the future. And I will see you all in that future, where we will then be concluding our episode, of course. Alright, there you have it. It's a peace treaty from the Achaemenids. They have decided to sue for peace, but no more can Earth bear two sons. Will Asia have two kings, as Alexander famously said. Of course, Darius himself offered Alexander peace much before he actually took over so much of the Persian heartland. In fact, he offered peace when Alexander pretty much established what we had at the start of the episode. But of course, we're going to reject it because why not? We are going to keep the Achaemenids on the ropes over here. We're going to go for a complete annihilation and try to actually blitz our way in terms of our conquest, because keep in mind, we only have about 60 turns before Alexander died historically. Of course, in this campaign, he will not die because it is not a scripted event, but we are nonetheless going to try our level best to complete our conquest in that specified timeline. Welcome to the next turn. Region available for acquisition. That is the same region over here. We're going to go ahead, deploy our dignitary this time so that we do acquire the region this time. And we are slowly but surely replenishing over here. We are going to try to push in for this army, try to wipe it out. Meanwhile, we move the other armies down south over here. We are going to move Hephaestion back up here towards Charax. Hopefully he should be able to replenish. We do have a decent amount of population class. Susa, on the other hand, we also have a decent population class, so we are going to just keep transferring over Alexander all the way towards Susa. Meanwhile, we can move this guy Ptolemaeus towards Persepolis. We can also move Cassandros towards Gore, and there we have it. We have actually moved around our units. Quickly just dismantle that building. Go ahead and build up over there. Take a quick look at all of our buildings. Make sure we are in the process of leveling as much as possible. It's looking good. In about 2 turns we should be able to have our food situation more or less resolved, so that is great. And we're not going to spend too much of our money because of course we have to be very cautious of being able to actually procure the settlement this time. And over here, go ahead, upgrade our governor general. It's Hippias, so let's see if we can actually promote him. Hippias, there we go. We can't, so that's fine for now because we are slowly but surely improving our economy. Meanwhile, over here, still summer, so we are going to be taking quite a bit of attrition, unfortunately. We have also leveled up this character over here, so let's go ahead and give him Aeschylus. Let's take a quick look. Aeschylus, where are you? There we go. Okay, can't really level him up, so that is rather unfortunate. Meanwhile, all the way back at our homeland, we can go ahead, get a couple of these units again, move him towards Larissa. Meanwhile, over here, we can't really get some more Agrianian axemen, but we can perhaps get them over here at Pella, so we're looking quite good. And now we really want to build up our cavalry as well as our infantry, as well as, of course, our Ageraspides. So what we are going to do is we are going to go ahead, put him up in Pella and start recruiting up some Halcaspides. Calcaspides, there we go. We can only recruit about 5 per turn, which is rather unfortunate, which means it will take a while for them to completely build up. But what we're going to do is transfer over all of these troops if we can possibly do so, and then we're going to try to march towards the east. You can see that Persian has become the dominant culture over here again because Hellenic is on the decline, but we are in the process of building up a consecrated ground which will help with our cultural conversion once again. For the most part, all of our regions are more or less Hellenic culture, and we are almost about to even flip Mesopotamia to Hellenic, so things are looking quite good as far as that is concerned. However, with that, let's just go ahead, end the turn. We do have Philotas over here, We are going to go ahead and deploy him in that patrol stance. Meanwhile, Hephaestion as well can go in a patrol stance, try to replenish, especially the loss of those Agerespides units. We have about 100 Politidaes over here. We have a couple of units over here that can help Alexander a little bit, which means we can go ahead and eventually lay siege to Ecbatana, take out the settlement. Of course, that depends on whether or not this army will reinforce. Perhaps they are going to try to move towards Hadrakata, and I really hope that they do, because I do not want to diplomatically acquire that province. However, for now, we're going to move our spy all the way over here into this crossroads, get a line of sight of Arachosia. The objective, of course, is to not take over Carmania. We're going to use Alexander to conquer all of this if possible. However, with that, let's just go ahead, end the turn, and I will see you all in the future when we are ready to push towards Ecbatana. And perhaps after taking out Ecbatana, we are going to go ahead and conclude this episode. Alright, welcome to a couple of turns in the future. Banditry missing taxes. Okay, we're looking quite good as economy and food is concerned. We have managed to upgrade all of our food buildings. So there you have it. You can see we're making about 50 food. So it means that food will no longer be a concern for the remainder of the campaign, of course. Meanwhile, we do have Cassandros over here that could go ahead and attack this army. We could just take out these two settlements and then leave the last bit for Alexander to take in the Gedrosian deserts, of course. And that is pretty much what we are going to attempt to do. In order to do that, we will need to just stay in ambush stance over here. Oops. Kind of misclicked that, so let's just move him back over there. Go into an ambush stance. Hopefully that should entice them to attack, and we're gonna just try to also stay in ambush stance over here, hoping for this army to walk into our trap is actually what we are trying to do. And we're going to move our dignitary all the way close towards Harmosia and deploy him over there, just like that. Meanwhile, summer has passed, which means these units can begin to replenish, which is a great news, of course. In preparation of that replenishment, what we are going to try to do is we are going to try to move all the way over here so that we can eventually attack Sadrakarta. We have a dignitary over here that's going to help with the cultural conversion of this province, so let's just deploy him over there. Meanwhile, we can actually start to improve some buildings. Pretty sure one of this gives commerce from all provinces, so we're going to go for that jeweler's hub, of course. And now the other unit is going to move as close. Perhaps we could attack here, but we're just going to wait a turn because I'm not entirely sure if this army could... Okay, cannot reach Ganzak, and I'm guessing Ganzak has a pretty decent garrison, so I'm pretty happy with that. What we are going to do is try to move this unit as close as possible to the border. Just go ahead and put him in a patrol stance. We're going to do that for both of the units. Make sure they get the maximum replenishment possible from Ganzak. They have a decent amount of population in order to do so. Meanwhile, Frafsa has really good population, guys. Apart from that, of course, we do have some more units over here that we're going to move into the Aegean Sea and then try to move them towards Antiochia like so. Over here we have another unit that we are going to basically we need some cavalry about get a couple of these as well as some cavalry. Okay, that's perfect, and we just need 2 more cavalry, and then we are just going to simply move this unit as well as across the Aegean Sea. Meanwhile, quick look to see our characters. We can level up this spy over here, so let's go ahead and get that assassination temp chance. And we do have another unit, which is Ptolemaeus over here. We can go ahead and give him some abilities to improve all of his stats. So that's looking good. We'll take a very quick look at our provinces, what we can build up. Mesopotamia is nicely coming along. Meanwhile, We can even upgrade over here at Egyptos, so that's exactly what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to maximize, of course, our economy. Egyptos is slowly picking up. Treke looking at 46,000 denarii, very, very powerful. But more importantly, just take a look at our empire maintenance. We've brought it down from 70%, minus 70% to minus 56. So that is really, really good, guys. Apart from that, we are going to use Alexander himself to go ahead, attack Ecbatana. Ecbatana has a decent garrison. They have taken some attrition due to, of course, the summer attrition that they were facing. We are going to go ahead, attack the settlement. We're going to quick save over here. I'm going to hop into this battle. I know it's going to take the episode a little bit longer, but I think it's kind of worth it because I haven't really showcased a lot of walled settlement sieges in this campaign, and this is a pretty good example of how I'm going to go ahead and do that. However, see you all in the battle, and after the battle, of course, we are going to go ahead and conclude the episode. Welcome to the final battle of this episode. It is the siege of Ecbatana, the capital of Media, basically the empire that was overthrown by the Achaemenids, basically a grandson, Cyrus, overthrowing his grandfather and establishing Persian Achaemenids. This was the capital of the Median Empire, but now, of course, it is under Achaemenid rule, so it is of quite significance, and we are going to launch an invasion of this city. Unfortunately for us, there are not that many avenues of attack. You can see we just have one gate over here on the southern side or the northern side of the settlement. If you look at the mini-map, we do not have any doors on the eastern and western half of the settlement, and we do not have any doors anywhere else. So pretty much that is the only avenue of attack. Of course, we do have one door over here, but it's a very, very small door, much more difficult to assail. What we have done is we have left our ladders in an advanced position thanks to our Agrarian sellswords who do have the guerrilla deployment, so it is worth it putting your ladders in an advanced position so that, of course, you don't have to slowly push them forward towards the walls. You can take them up in an advanced position and then just quickly move up to the walls. Meanwhile, our Cretan archers as well as our Agrarian peltaste are going to be supporting our assault on the walls, going to be hurling their javelins as well as their missile fires. Even our Rhodian slingers are getting involved, but our Rhodian slingers, as all slingers, are not going to have that much of a clear-cut trajectory as opposed to our archers, so a lot of their missiles are just going to be wasted, but it is the best what we can do. Meanwhile, our Phalangite units are going to try to burn down the gates, allowing us another possible avenue of attack. For the assault, I am using my Agerespides units, or my Basilikoi Hyperpista in this case, since this is Alexander's army, so he is able to use these guys. And I know that they are not melee troops, and usually melee troops like the Agrarian sellswords over here in the back are usually better at scaling the walls, but there are two reasons why I actually lead the assault with my Basilikoi Hyperpista, and the reason being is that these guys have insane amount of armor, 41 armor, which means they'll take a lot less casualties. They have really good defense value at 31, so that's another reason they'll take a lot less casualties. Apart from that, these unique units available to Alexander also come with the scare and immune to scare ability, as you can see over here. This unit over here does have that scare ability. So we are going to scale the walls, jump onto the ramparts, start engaging in the enemy, and as soon as our Agrarians are done using their missiles, they are going to support. Now, the reason being is the Agrarians are lightly armored at 20 armor, but they have quite a lot of melee attack potential. 16 melee attack, overall weapon damage of 35, 15 of which is armor piercing, 2 of which is actually a bonus versus infantry, and of course, being a melee unit, they're going to have a significant advantage in the melee on the walls. But as you can see, our fear is coming into play. We are able to rout out some of the units initially, and as you can see, we haven't taken quite a lot of casualties with either units. In fact, this unit is at full strength still, and that is just the advantage of having a heavily armored unit scale the walls first. Typically, units that scale the wall first are mostly probable to being wiped out from the field of battle, especially in a siege battle like this, because when you retreat, you'll have to come through the ramparts, through the gates, and run out, and in doing so, you're going to cross a lot of hostile units, and they're going to be able to whittle you down into non-existence. So the most important thing is to not use our squishy Agrarians to scale the walls first. Instead, use them from relative safety. Now they can scale the walls kind of unopposed, supported by, of course, our Basilikoi Hypophistae. As you can see in the back, we have Alexander, of course, moving around, trying to, give away some buffs to the army. He has managed to do so, so that is pretty much what we're doing. Over here, unfortunately, our Calcaspedes units cannot burn down the walls yet because they have been engaged by a melee unit, which is really smart on the behalf of the enemy AI. If this unit did not come outside the gates of their settlement, we would have been able to damage the gates quite a significant bit until now, but we are still going to be pouring in our Agrarian axemen, trying to gain complete control and dominance of the ramparts. As you can see over here, some of the units are already wavering, losing quite decisively. We're having a lot of missile fire, as you can see, pour down into the ramparts against our units, but of course a lot of it is going to be targeted against our Gaugamela unit instead of our lightly armored Agrarian units, which means we're going to be able to tank a lot more of the damage. In fact, Antigonus himself has not taken a single casualty, and there we have it. You can start to see some casualties. I kind of jinxed it right there, but we don't care. It's still a pretty strong unit, and they're not going to be taking that many casualties for far too long, because as soon as I gain control of the walls, I am going to go down and try to pin down some of these archer units and give them a much harder trajectory to hit me. Because as you can see over here, as long as we are on the ramparts, we do not have these defensive structures that protect us. For those of you who know what these are called, please comment down in the comment section down below. But basically what this does is it gives the archers a clear sight to attack us, and while this unit over here is kind of protected by their shields, since they are facing their shields towards the missile fire, the units on the other sides are obviously exposed, especially if they turn their backs like this towards the enemy. Unfortunately, as you can see over here, we're still engaged with this unit. They are doing really good against our pikemen, and I'm getting really restless over here. Our pikemen are not able to decisively beat these units. We're slowly whittling them down. We have no real threat of losing the situation over here, but unfortunately what we really want is for us to be effective with our time. However, as you can see, the battle rages on for another 7 minutes. That's because even though we managed to gain a control of the ramparts, neutralizing it, which allows us to march through the gates without the threat of oil being poured on us, we are not able to burn down the gates, unfortunately, because this unit is still fighting quite well, and they're the Vazrakas Barbara, so you can see just how good they are in a melee. Despite being so outclassed by pikemen, they are still going to be fighting to the very bitter end. 94, they're below 50% of their strength. They're still steady in morale, so they have really good, decent morale. Base morale of 61, which is absolutely insane. They're going to take an incredible amount of time to break, and realizing the situation, I realized that I cannot be stuck on the ramparts for far too long, so I have decided to send down some of my units. Thankfully, my Basilikoi Hypophistae are very good against enemy cavalry, so they're going to make short work of a lot of enemy cavalry that's over here. You can see a lot of the cavalry is going to start to lose decisively, and nothing much they can do against our spear units over here. And there's pretty much the same thing happening on the other side of the ramparts. You can see that our Basilikoi Hypophistae as well as Agrarian axemen engaging the enemy, causing some massive casualties over here, some of them taking some L's, big L's by the way, but for the most part we are still trying to push as much as we possibly can. Of course, that fear ability helping us out greatly. We have taken some losses with Seleucus. He's seen most of the fighting, taken most of the missile damage, but of course, despite taking these casualties, we have managed to inflict quite a significant amount of casualties. As you can see over here, 293 for Antigonus, about 174 for Seleucus, which is really respectable considering the odds they're up against. And now that we have finally dealt with that unit, we're starting to burn down the enemy gates. It's at 14%. Unfortunately, the doors are open, which means slowing them. Burning it down is going to take a longer time with each volley. As you can see over here, we're just about hitting 5 to 6 fire damage, and we want to get that up all the way to 100% so that the doors are finally burnt. However, that being said and done, you can see that we are slowly starting to win the battle just purely with our Hyperphistae as well as Agrarian sellswords, managing to slowly hack their way through the enemy forces, causing them to lose decisively. We still have a massive advantage in the melee, and that is what we're trying to do. One of the things we're trying to do is get rid of this blob over here, get rid of this blob over here. Whichever happens first, the others can support, and I believe that this left hand side over here is more likely of breaking, because after these two units are done and dealt with, they only have missile units which are going to pretty much drop like flies, which means I can move across and attack this unit over here, causing some significant morale penalties. But as you can see, the gate's still burning, still at about just 43% damage, so it's going to be a while before we can actually reinforce our units. They are massively outnumbered over here. Agrarian Axemen, as you can see, taking 128 casualties despite joining the battle at a much later stage, and this is why you do not want to send your Agrarian Axemen up before, because they could really rout from the field of battle, and they will definitely be wiped out. And much like my unique Hyperphistae, the Agrarian Axemen are also kind of unique in the sense that I can only recruit them as mercenaries all the way from Thracia as well as Macedonia, so definitely do not want to lose that unit. Of course, you can see over here we just have 125, and you can see since these units have managed to rout from the field of battle, getting rid of the missile unit is going to be very easy. We're going to be able to attack them, and there you have it, a very gruesome kill over there. Oof, so it's real carnage over here. These guys are absolutely going to flee from the battle. They're not going to be able to do much against our units, of course, and there you have it. Completely taken out of the equation. Just quickly checking my reshade graphics, because some of that effects was a little bit pixelated, but I'm really loving the MIV effects now. As soon as that's happening, we're going to charge our extremely winded and tired troops. Realizing that my Agrarians have taken some casualties, I'm supporting them with the Peltaste units, just so that we have a bit more units to charge into the fray. I noticed that we have a lot of missile units over here that are basically firing at will against our units, and the objective over here is to burn down the gates as quickly as possible. We're almost there, and I'm not going to engage my Phalangite. I'm just going to get them across, move them away from the gates, allowing my cavalry, and there you have, the gates have been dealt with. We're going to move our Phalangite away, charge in with our cavalry into the enemy, of course, and the enemy cavalry also trying to charge over here, create some sort of casualties. But once again, they're not going to be able to do much against our Agrarians. There's a lot of carnage which blocks their pathfinding, so they're not going to get a clean charge. They're going to get bogged down over here in the melee, which means they're going to take quite a bit of casualties over here. Unfortunately, of course, it is our Agrarians that are engaged against them. The Agrarians are not really bad against enemy cavalry, but of course it would be a lot better if we used our spear units to engage this cavalry. But I'm kind of trying to ignore that cavalry as much as I possibly can, because I am just right now over here using my spearmen to face off against cavalry, using my Agrarians to attack the flanks of these units, try to break them from the field of battle, and there you have it. You can see one by one they're getting broken. They're sending a lot more archers to support over here, but the balance of power is quickly going to shift. We just have about 1.5 minutes left for the battle to go, so you can see we are in a very strong position to win right now. The gates are completely broken. I haven't really charged my cavalry in, although I kinda should, but it's not a very clear-cut situation, because you can see the opening is fairly blocked, which means my pathfinding is definitely going to be an issue. However, let's take a look at some of the carnage. Real hacking going on over here. There we have it. Oof, right to the head over there. Really nice. Really love Et Impera, Rome 2 Total War for these visuals. Really fantastic. And there you have it. What a kick to the nuts, back to the head. Wow, that is a deadly combo. The last thing he would ever remember is kicks to the nuts, because there you have it. Our cavalry has charged in. Alexander at the, I guess that was the sign. It's like charge in when he gets kicked in the nuts. There you have it, Alexander and his cavalry charging against the enemy missiles. The main objective over here is to break their morale, cause them to flee, tip the balance of powers in our favor so that we can quickly end this gruesome battle. Of course, a lot of our units taken quite a bit of casualties, but dished out quite a lot of casualties themselves. 335, 351 for Agranians. We have 538 for Antigonus and increasing, and of course 330 for Seleucus. But you can see a lot of our units taking quite a bit of casualties, like this unit over here at 148, that unit over there just at 89 men. So that is why it is so important to protect your Agranian axemen, because they are extremely squishy. They're a little bit of a glass cannon, not so much so of a glass cannon like Thracian Rumphii, but you have to really be careful how you handle them, because if you're not careful, you can pretty much lose them, especially in a siege fight like this. You can see that unit kind of charged in at a much later stage. However, regardless of which, there's Alexander, by the way, regardless of which, it has almost been wiped out. So charging it second is the key in these kind of battles, because they are going to be useful on the ramparts, but at the same time they're not going to be in the crosshairs of the enemy AI. Apart from that, you can see that we managed to win the battle. Of course, I am just continuing to speak just because I want to talk a little bit more on the tactics that I've employed, and this is pretty much the tactics I kind of use in all of my engagements, sieges, because it is the most effective, especially Hyperphiste as well as Agranian as a combination can do really well. In fact, close to 2,000 of the casualties inflicted in this battle have been handled by Agranians, both the sellswords as well as the peltaste, and the other 1,000 of which have been dished out by my Basilikoi Hyperphiste. So really good unit. Meanwhile, of course, Alexander himself playing a very minor role in the battle in the end, basically trying to break the morale of the enemy if we get that opening to charge into the settlement. However, that being said and done, we're done with this battle. We managed to conquer Ecbatana, beautiful city. If you turn on the foliage right there, you can see the palm trees and everything. The cultural capital of the Median Empire, which preceded the mighty Achaemenid Empire. However, with that, we're done the battle. I'm going to go ahead, end the battle, and I will see you all in the campaign. And there you have another decisive victory. As you can see, our Agranians as well as our Geraspires performing really good, very good synergy. Of course, we took a little bit of casualties because it was a difficult settlement to attack. It didn't have a lot of options to enter the settlement, and it was actually divided by a river right through the middle of the settlement. So that was rather unfortunate, but we are going to go ahead, simply loot the settlement because we do not want to attack it again. And with that, we have taken over Ecbatana. We're going to go ahead, dismantle all of the buildings we do not require. And of course, we do have some armies over here that we are going to try to mop up as quickly as we can. We're going to move all the way over here, and we are going to try to mop them up as best as we can. Meanwhile, over here, do we have a decent garrison at Susa? We do, so I am a little bit encouraged to move all the way up over there towards Raga, and we are going to go into a ambush stance over there with Hephaestion, of course, and we are going to go ahead and attack the settlement of Raga. Meanwhile, Alexander himself has leveled up, so let's actually go ahead. We can get this Hellenic one, which actually improves their exhaustion as well, which is really good, especially since you're fighting a lot of massive armies. We're going to move our spy a little bit further to the east, start moving them, get a line of sight of what's happening over here. And as you can see, the Achaemenids are just a shadow of their former might. Of course, you can see they only have about 4 settlements left. Nisa, Susia, they lost Sadrakarta to the Kartli, but it has been taken back by the Bactriane. And then we are going to take Hecaton Pylos as well as Raga, wiping out the Achaemenids. And of course, Alexander himself still 27 years of age, and now even though we have 60 turns left for the campaign to come to its end, we are in a very strong position to win this campaign. I do not see the Achaemenids making a comeback. In fact, the Achaemenids are no longer a massive threat. In fact, they just have one major army over here, and apart from that, they just have weaker armies elsewhere. So we will be able to move really quickly depending on our replenishment into the Achaemenid heartlands. And the bigger threat, of course, is going to be the Bactriane. The Bactriane, apart from, of course, owning Sadrocata recently, they own the entirety of Chorasmia, Transoxiana, Aria, and Bactriane, so they are a pretty big faction. In fact, they are a lot bigger than the Achaemenids themselves. One of the things I do like, and I did mention about Paradox Interactive, is that vassals can become disloyal, especially if you're weak. Unfortunately, that's not much of a relevant phenomenon in Rome 2 Total War. So the Bactriane is still going to be quite loyal to the Achaemenids to the very last, and we are going to have to wipe them out as well. However, it's rather interesting because historically speaking, it was that once the Achaemenids were significantly weakened after, of course, Gaugamela and the subsequent conquest of Mesopotamia, Darius himself was betrayed and backstabbed. And he was killed, and Alexander did end up finding his body somewhere around Susia, and then he offered him a respectable funeral rite, sending his body back home to Babylon to be buried, I think, in Persepolis, because that is where most of the Persian rulers were buried. But he basically treated Darius and his family members quite well, with a great deal of respect, despite being adversaries. However, with that, I think it can go ahead and end the episode. We have pretty much accomplished whatever we set out to do in this episode. We managed to start out with a victory at Gaugamela, taking over the settlement of Babylonia, after which we managed to keep pushing our forward momentum. We managed to conquer the entirety of the Persian cultural heartland of Persis. We even almost managed to complete our conquest of Media. In fact, in the very next turn, we should be able to push with Hephaestion towards Raga, thereby easily taking over the settlement, unless, of course, this army decides to garrison itself at Raga, but that will remain to be seen in the future episodes to come. Apart from that, economically speaking, we're looking quite good. We're making about 36,000 denarii per turn, which is really, really good, and we don't really need that kind of economy anymore, because we have about 8 armies, and of course in the process of making 2 more new armies, which will put us up at 10 armies, and I think we have come a long way from, of course, the start of the campaign, where we basically just had 2 armies holding out a multitude of Achaemenid stacks, as well as their satrapies. Of course, they had about 60 armies, and we've managed to push them back slowly but surely, gaining an upper hand. And of course, if we take a look at that fact that we now have 10 armies, I think we are still slightly outnumbered. Of course, the Achaemenids themselves can field 4 armies. Meanwhile, the Bactriane can field anywhere between 4 to 8 armies. And of course, we do have the Aracosians with their 4 stacks as well. So that is approximately 14 to 16 stacks against our 10 stacks. But we do have a significant momentum advantage right now, so to speak. So we will be able to win this campaign. Of course, we have a lot more armies right now, which means we are much better to defend our conquests. And as you can see, we are defending our conquests over here in Persis. We have 2 armies protecting the settlement of Persepolis as well as Gore, and we are going to slowly attempt to keep pushing into Carmania, and that's where we are going to stop our eastward expansion and then allow Alexander to take over Parthia, and then the remainder of the Achaemenid army, including Chorasmia, Transoxiana, Aria, Bactriane, and finally his march home through the Gedrosian desert, of course. And when he actually does that march back, I am actually going to push from Carmania and take over Gedrosia, particularly Pura, as well as Aurea from the Achaemenids, thereby concluding our entire Alexandrian campaign, which is going to be extremely amazing. We have come quite a long way, and I actually forgot to count our satraps, which have 4 armies, so that puts us up at 14 stacks versus the Achaemenid 16 to 18 stacks. But still, the Armenian army is not that formidable. In fact, they have taken quite a lot of casualties, and will not play much of a significant role in the campaign or in the episodes to come, because they are fairly at a retreated position. which means they actually have to get a lot, into an advanced position through our lands. And of course, we have a lot of armies in an advanced position that are ready to capitalize. However, with that, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And if you liked the video, then like the video. And don't forget to subscribe if you are interested for more. Peace and love.